Welcome back. In this video, we're going to take a look at what I consider to be the intermediate flags. This is part one. These are going to include mostly or pretty much only the flags that have anything to do with YouTube and the YouTube API keys that we had to insert into the tool in a previous video. This should be a pretty simple, direct video, so we'll just jump right into it. So the first flag is the Y flag. It could also be the long form YouTube with an equal sign. It can also be the long form flag here, which is, again, those long form flags, they have a really strong use case or argument for their use when it comes to scripting. When you're writing code and you're using these things programmatically, it really keeps clear what's happening in scripting and encoding and things like that. But for just direct usage like this, the short form, the short flags are pretty much all I use anyhow when I can. So the first flag being the Y flag, and then we would follow that up with a YouTube address. So for instance, like we have the introducing fabric video by Daniel Miessler. We could take and copy that out of the URL bar, or you can right click on the video and copy the URL that way. After you insert that, this is kind of like a dry run, without having to use the dry run flag that we've used before, which looks like that. So we're not sending this to a pattern to be processed by an LLM yet with this Y flag. This should just pull the transcript and spit it out onto the terminal screen. And that's what we see. This, the white wall of vomit. This is just the full transcript from this 26 minute video. Just so you know, by default with this command, we ran the Y flag without any other arguments. So this by default is like using the transcript flag. And there's other use cases for the transcript flag. So the next flag that we can do is, I think there's a new one that's transcript with timestamps. And so let's give this a whirl on that same introducing fabric video by Miessler. And you see, we just get the entire transcript for that, roughly half-hour video, a little under, with all of the timestamps for the timestamp timeframes. Really, they appear to be about 5-second intervals, and it records or transcribes what happens, what he said within those roughly 5-second windows of time. I'm sure you can already connect some dots there that are laid down in front of you. This is extremely useful. Oh my God. So the next flag that we're going to take a look at, clear the screen up, pull our command back up. So we use the transcript with timestamps. That's a really nice, useful one. And we can pull the comments. So in the video, if we were to expand this is the description, and you'll see here, just kind of expanding this window so it's easier to see all these comments, the comment thread for this video, see if we are pulling those down successfully. So let's go up and see what the first one says. How does this differ to an all-purpose mainstream LLM? Let's do newest first and see if that's how they organized it. So newest first on top, great idea and vision. I think we saw that. Now I'm starting to figure out how that's organizing them. Great idea. I'm curious. How does this differ? Yep. Okay. So that's how it's organizing it. When we use the comments flag with the YouTube flag and a YouTube URL, it spits out all the comments starting with the newest first. If you wanted to see that line up with what's actually happening in the YouTube page, you would go to sort comments and make sure this is clicked on newest first, and then these would line up in the same order as what is happening here. Just so you know, I don't know if that's useful to you or not, but I was just curious myself. The next flag, let's clear our screen up. The next flag is metadata, and this just pulls all of the metadata on this video here. The ID, the title, and what's really useful about this is you don't have to parse nearly as much to get things like the title, the full description. If you're curious, if you want to start organizing on your system, not downloading a bunch of videos from a favorite YouTuber of yours, but you just want to organize a set of links, and you want to organize them by publish date or however, you can sort them, because you can easily parse all of these things very, very easily, and you can use them to tag and sort of keep a database. Well, not sort of, but to keep a database, small database on your system of all your favorite YouTube videos. This is how you really start building out a very custom, personalized, custom to you system, in this example for YouTube. But once you know how to build it, once you see how easy it is to do these things, then you can't ever go back. So at any great. That's the metadata flag. And then we have another interesting flag here that we can use next. And we are in the user's home directory. We're going to head on over to the some files directory. I know there's some files that we keep in there. So this is a pretty good place to do this, to run this little experiment, which is running the fabric command with the Y flag and the YouTube, the address of this introducing fabric video. And instead of the metadata flag, we're going to run the playlist flag. Now, to use this flag, you have to be on a page where the URL is for the playlist and not for the video. And that can be, you know, depending on what kind of interface. If you're on your PC, obviously if you're on your TV, none of this does very much good. But if you want to make sure, you know, the way I've tested it, like if we were to run this one here, or we can try, this is slightly different, this URL here, because we got it from copying the video URL. So we could try to run the playlist, but we'll see if it... So what you'll see is that when we ran the playlist flag, all it did was pull up the transcript for this video. And the same thing would happen if you ran this URL, which is slightly different, but they both are the pointer to this video. And so the playlist flag isn't really doing anything different than what the transcript flag does, because you don't have the right video URL. So for instance, to find the playlist that this video's in, you know, you can click on unsupervised learning. When it pops out at your eye, you'll start to see it. So if you go to playlist, if you put in this URL, it will not work. So if we were to copy that URL, that's an invalid, it's not, I mean, obviously the URL, it's a YouTube address, but it's not of the right format for the Fabric tool to parse it. And because this particular page doesn't really have the data that you're after anyhow. We've tried 3 different video URLs. The one that you're going to find that's going to do something cool is if you go, when we clicked on playlists, and then right here, click on view full playlist, grab this URL right here, grab that one and see what happens. So we have the URL out of the URL bar up here from the playlist page. Again, just to be clear, when you're in unsupervised learning and you have these options right here, home video, shorts, plays, click on the playlist, and when you get to see this, click on view full playlist. This is the URL that's going to do something. And what is it going to do? It just copied down to the system the full transcript for every video in this playlist. Now, if you were on a playlist that had 80 or 100 videos, that might not be of great use to you, but it still might, because what that just did is it copied them down with the title of every video on here. So each of these videos, these titles are the names of these files. They're plain text files, but with these MD markdown files, these each contain the full transcript to each of these videos. That's pretty cool once you figure it out, and once you figure out which URL to put into the tool. It takes a little messing around. It took me a little messing around to find the right one. For obvious reasons, being the playlist flag, I was able to zero in pretty quick on which URL would be the right one, but I had to put a couple 2, 3 in and get some errors before I figured out exactly which URL is supposed to be going into this thing. I just wanted to see what it would do. And then when it did that was cool. That was pretty cool. We have a file with the title and transcript for each one of these right into whatever directory we were in when we ran the flag. So I know I spent a little bit of time on that particular one, but keep in mind that what is happening here is we're running this Fabric tool with the Y YouTube flag with various other secondary commands, all without using an LLM. This is all just straight text processing. No LLMs or inference involved yet. I just wanted to be clear on that. This is so far just using the tool to get the text down onto our system. And then what can happen from there is that we can run any number of things that you can think of. Let's say we go back to Mr. Meisler's Fabric video for just a few moments, and we right click so that this menu pops up for us once we have our YouTube account. And then with the YouTube key inserted into the Fabric tool, we can then start using the tool with the Y flag. And this is without using any secondary commands. So let's just see what building this command one step at a time. And what you're going to see, even though you see we ran this pretty straightforward command, which should put out the transcript to this video, we had all kinds of stuff dumped out and written to file without running the playlist secondary command. And so if we come to a different video where we're not in the playlist. We actually went in through the playlist into another one of the specific videos, again, into the Fabric AI video. And having pulled this URL, and if we pull this URL, let's see what happens. You know, on the very same video, pulling this URL, it ran the playlist flag without us typing playlist. And so if we run this, the one straight out of the URL bar, you see we have a little list in here in the previous command that we pulled directly off of here by right-clicking and selecting copy video URL. You see it has a keyword playlist, even though we didn't copy it from the playlist, but right here. And then if we grab the one out of the URL bar, which is this one, we will see that it did just the transcript for this video, along with some other weird stuff that we're not going to even bother trying to understand because it doesn't really matter. Even on this one page, we're getting different results with different URLs. And so this is something you need to remain very aware of. And if you want to make sure that you just get a so-called clean transcript here, you would want to go directly to the video, not going through any playlist. So like say you're here at unsupervised learning, instead of being through this in any direction, no matter how many layers deep, and you think that you're just at the video, get back out to unsupervised learning, go into the video, and this one should give us the correct URL. It's all about where you're grabbing, where you are in YouTube when you grab these things. It can make a big difference in this command working properly or not, is what I've noticed. And another thing I've noticed is that if you have a URL that's really starting to get lengthy, you're probably in through playlists. That's probably not 100% true. That's kind of a pattern that I've picked up on. And when you have a really, really short YouTube URL of this format, you know, your HTTPS, u2.b, and then / and then somewhere around this number of, you know, just garble, generally speaking, you're directly at the video's URL. Because if we run that, we get just the text from the transcript with none of that other funny business, even though there's only 3 or 4 lines of it. That stuff can really screw up when you're pulling this down your system and then running it through automation. It can really screw all that stuff up. It actually really matters. You can't just have gotten to these specific YouTube video via any route at all, because if you went through playlists or anything like that to get to a video, it's going to start screwing all of this up. It's something I've noticed for some of the things that I do, but it was very easy to figure out because I had a pretty good idea of what was happening and why it was happening. But if you don't really have any idea about this kind of stuff and you're here to learn, when all kinds of crazy stuff is happening and you just have no idea, remotely have no idea why, it gets really frustrating. And then you'll have one of your many rage quits that you're gonna have when you get into tech side and stuff like that. You know, they're gonna happen. I had 2 of them a couple days ago, 2 in a row within like 2 hours. You know, just rage quit. Then you're back at it anyhow. It doesn't matter. So moving on, that's using the tool to use the various YouTube flags. And so now we want to start using this productively on the system. So now we could use this. Now that we know we have the right URL for the specific video so that we just get the transcript, now we can do things like piping it to a regular Fabric command like extract wisdom. And that's really not a very good example of the extract wisdom flag. Usually it's a lot more verbose. Llama 3.2 is not doing a very good job on this. Trying these various combinations of the Fabric command, we notice that we just don't get the sort of output that we're looking for. So let's take a look at what's going on here and see if we can't solve this on the fly, because if I run into this problem where we're getting, garbage output from our LLMs, we kind of want to know why. And you might as well do a walk along with someone who's already, bashed their face against a wall for hours until they got something to work. That'd be me. We just ran the dry run. We see that it's properly sending the system prompt, and then we start with input, and we're not getting anything like this output that we should be getting. And I'm already suspecting something. I'm suspecting that we're having a double input, and that's kind of starting to zero out our context window. And that's exactly what's happening. Right here we have the user again, and it's running the entire transcript through again. That's what the tool seems to be doing by default. This is a bug that we'll have to report, because we're not doing anything to send it twice. So really, our previous command should have worked. It gives us a short, not very good response. It's not what the extract wisdom response is supposed to look like, this short little thing. And it's because we're chewing up all of our available tokens for the given context window. That's exactly what's happening, I believe. And we could probably get around that. This flag wasn't supposed to come out until the next video. We're going to put in the model context length over here. I believe that's got to be a capital C. And if we increase this momentarily to something like 16,000, maybe we'll see something different happen here. See what I mean? I'll bet some of you are glad to be watching along to run into this problem. Now we get, this is what the extract wisdom response is supposed to look like. And we had to increase the model context length because by default, the llama model that we have hooked up has a context length. I just happen to know of about 8,000 some odd tokens. And those are being chewed up almost entirely because the fabric command is sending the transcript twice. That's a bug that we have to report so that they can get that repaired so that we don't have to go in and set these enormous context lengths. They're not enormous, you know, I mean, this is relative, but 16,000, that's not a very big context window, but seeing as the default is 8,000 something, you know, if we ran the dry run, I was hoping to see context length setting here, but, you know, it would tell us in Olama, actually, where, because we have fabric hooked up to a llama right now, and we're running the I think we're running latest. So let's just see. So this has a context length, a maximum context length of 131,000 tokens, and I knew that it was about 132,000 tokens, but that's not the default. The default on this should be 8,000 something. I'm positive that the default context length here is 8,000 some odd tokens. If we take that back off and run it, we get this for the extract wisdom pattern, we get this very garbage response. But when we extend the context length out to 16,000, or let's even go 32,000. And the problem is that as you extend these context lengths in line or in the default, you know, in the setup, when you extend these, it takes longer and longer for the system to generate the response or to run the inference because you're chewing up a lot more compute. And that's fine as far as it goes. You know, if you have the patience for everything to run a little slower, because as you can see, it's not that slow. Opening up the context to 32,000 from 8,000 something, we're roughly quadrupling the context window, and all of a sudden we're starting to get a much more nuanced response by a lot more granular detail. Running this with a 32,000 model context length, that matters a lot with this particular problem because running them for whatever reason, they're being double input by the fabric tool when they're sent off to the payload. So I have to get that fixed. So backing up, let's be clear about this. When you're trying to run a YouTube transcript of about a half an hour and you're trying to pipe it to the extract wisdom, whether you use the YouTube function or if we go back to the Y command, you know, running fabric-y instead of the YT shell function that they built for us, we just run the fabric-y. This URL, which is remember we had the whole problem of which URLs you're getting yourself into. And once you get that cleared up and you're using the correct URLs, and then we try to pipe that and we get this really blog, garbage, crappy response from extract wisdom, right? This response sucks. But then we at least double, or let's say, you know, the 32,000 was actually working for us pretty well just on CPU. It was kind of slow to run inference, but it worked. And I can tell you right away, because I'm starting to see the proper markdown syntax. This is going to be a proper extract wisdom response because we had to increase, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but I want this to be crystal clear. We had to increase the model context length. We have it increased to 32,000 tokens here. 16,000 tokens about does it for something like a half-hour YouTube transcript. 16,000 tokens will start getting you a good response. 32,000 tokens starts to get us a really nice response, the type of response that we expect from extract wisdom, particularly with a local model. And those will get better and better and better if you start using more powerful models. That's a whole other dimension to this. But it's good to see this problem or to catch this culprit red-handed so that you see how you solve things like this. This particular problem, the only reason I was able to figure it out is because one of the things that you do for debugging is you hit a lot of different CLI tools, a lot of different CLI tools. They have a dry run option, and that's oftentimes for debugging. We could tell by running the dry run, and I'm just running it a couple times now to make sure that it's doing the same thing before I go. And when you go to report a bug, you gotta be right. And luckily, you know, I'll report the bug, and I can actually just link to this video so that they can go on and they'll be able to recreate this super easy. But that's what it's doing. It's sending the entire transcript twice, and we're correctly inputting the command. And so to get around it, we had to extend the model context length, and then it started working correctly. And then whenever this bug gets cleared up, you'll be able to probably run it just fine on the default 8,000 tokens. And you can set your default to something higher too. So this text for a half an hour, this isn't so much. I've run commands all over the place for all kinds of reasons. I've run a lot, like a lot. And this should be able, 8,000 tokens should be able to handle that. I can tell, kind of just visually speaking, it should be able to get, Extract Wisdom should be able to give us a good response with just an 8,000 token window. But sending it to the LLM twice in the first payload, we have it all again, and that's just chewing up our context window. That's what's happening. So at any rate, I can do all that yet again, beat that horse dead for you if you'd like, but I know you don't want me to do that. Clear up our screen, and we've gone through all of the, what I consider to be the intermediate Fabric AI CLI command flags. They're all the YouTube related ones. And this is part one. And part two, the first that we were going to lead out with was actually going to be the model context length. I was simulating that problem in a different way, and this problem just popped up literally before that video. It's kind of, sometimes the universe unfolds as it should, I guess. But we'll see in the next one, in intermediate flags part two,